That slap echoed in the silence of my kitchen for what felt like forever. My cheek burned, but my heart burned hotter. I stood there, 65 years old, in the house I'd raised my son in, and I said nothing, not a single word, because sometimes silence is the strongest answer a woman can give. My name is Mabel Jefferson. I'm 65 years old, and I've spent most of my life being a good mother, a good neighbor, and a good Christian woman. I raised my boy, Marcus, alone after his father passed when he was just 12. I worked 2 jobs, morning shift at the hospital cafeteria, evening shift cleaning offices downtown. I never let him see me cry, even when my feet ached so bad I could barely stand. I wanted him to have everything his father couldn't give him, and he did. He graduated college, got himself a good job, made me proud every single day. But this story isn't about all those good years. This story is about the day after his wedding, when everything I thought I knew about my son's happiness shattered like glass on a tile floor. It was a Sunday morning. The June sun was pouring through my kitchen window, the same window I'd looked through 1,000 times while baking Marcus's favorite peach cobbler. The smell of coffee filled the air. I had my apron on, the blue one with little white flowers that Marcus bought me for Mother's Day years ago. That apron had seen me through so many meals, so many moments. I didn't know it then, but that morning, it would become a symbol of something I never thought I'd have to face. I heard the front door open. I smiled, thinking it was Marcus coming by to check on me like he always did. But it wasn't just Marcus. It was her, Chelsea, my new daughter-in-law. She walked into my kitchen like she owned the place, wearing a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, Mabel," she said. Not Mom, not Mrs. Jefferson. Just Mabel, like I was a stranger. I swallowed that first little hurt and smiled back. "Good morning, sweetheart. You want some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." She looked around my kitchen with this strange expression, like she was inspecting it. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk about some changes around here." I set down my coffee cup slowly. "Changes?" She stepped closer, and that's when I saw it, something hard and cold in her eyes, something I'd never seen in the year Marcus had been dating her. She crossed her arms. "Marcus and I have been talking. This house is too big for you. You're getting older. You can't manage it alone." My heart started pounding. "Baby, I've been managing this house for 30 years. "That's exactly the point," she interrupted, her voice sharp as a knife. "You're old. You need help. So we've decided. Marcus and I are moving in. And you," she paused, and I'll never forget the look on her face. "You're going to help around the house, cooking, cleaning, you know, like you've always done." The air left my lungs. "What are you saying?" And that's when she said it. That's when everything changed. "You're our maid now, Mabel." Before I could even process those words, her hand flew across my face. The slap was sharp, sudden, meant to put me in my place. I stumbled back against the counter, my hand going to my burning cheek, and I just stared at her. I said nothing, not because I was weak, but because I knew. I knew that whatever came next wasn't going to come from me. Sometimes we trust people we shouldn't. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. But that morning, standing in my kitchen with my cheek on fire, I heard something that changed everything. I heard the front door open again, and I heard my son's voice. "Mom, Chelsea, I'm home." Chelsea's face went pale when she heard Marcus's voice. For just a second, I saw fear flash across her eyes. She took a step back from me, smoothing down her hair, fixing her smile like she was putting on a mask. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, my hand still pressed against my burning cheek, my heart hammering in my chest. "In here, baby," Chelsea called out, her voice suddenly sweet as honey. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just slapped me in my own kitchen. I heard Marcus's footsteps coming down the hallway, and suddenly I was somewhere else. I was remembering a different time, a different version of this same sound. My boy's footsteps running through this house. He was 7 years old, maybe 8. It was Saturday morning, and I'd just finished my hospital shift. I was so tired I could barely stand, but I'd promised him pancakes. I remember standing at this same stove, and I heard those little feet thundering down the stairs. He burst into the kitchen wearing his Superman pajamas, his face lit up like Christmas morning. "Mama, Mama, are they ready?" I turned around with a plate stacked high with pancakes, and the look on his face, pure joy, pure love, that look was everything. He wrapped his little arms around my waist and squeezed tight. "You're the best mama in the whole world," he said. And I believed him. God help me. I believed him. Those were the years when it was just us against the world. After his father died, Marcus became my whole heart. I worked myself to the bone to give him a good life. We didn't have much money, but we had love. We had Sunday dinners at this table. We had late-night talks when he couldn't sleep, worried about tests or bullies or the future. I held him through every nightmare, celebrated every victory, dried every tear. When he got that full scholarship to Howard University, I cried for 3 days straight. Happy tears, proud tears. My baby was going to have the life I'd dreamed for him. And when he graduated, when he walked across that stage in his cap and gown, he found me in the crowd and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." That's the Marcus I raised. That's the son I knew. The man who called me every Sunday without fail. The man who showed up when I had the flu last winter and made me soup, even though he didn't know how to cook. The man who cried in my arms when he got his first big promotion and said, "Daddy would be proud, wouldn't he, Mama?" Yes, baby, your daddy would be so proud. But somewhere between that graduation and this moment, something changed. Chelsea came into his life like a whirlwind. Beautiful, polished, educated. She worked in marketing for some big company downtown. She had everything I'd never had. Confidence, money, style. And I was happy for him. I really was. I thought, finally, my boy has found someone who can give him the life he deserves. I ignored the little signs, the way she'd correct his grammar in front of people, the way she'd make jokes about his humble beginnings, the way she looked at my house during their first visit, that same look she'd had this morning, like it wasn't good enough. At the wedding yesterday, she'd smiled at me. She'd called me Mom for the first time. She'd even asked me to dance. I thought maybe I'd been wrong about her. Maybe she just needed time to warm up. Maybe she really did love my son. But now, standing in my kitchen with my cheek still burning, I understood. That warmth had been an act, a performance for the guests. And now that the wedding was over, now that she had what she wanted, the mask was coming off. Marcus appeared in the doorway, and my heart broke all over again. He was wearing the blue shirt I'd ironed for him last week, his father's watch on his wrist, the only thing I had left to give him. He looked so handsome, so grown up, so much like the man his father would have become. "Hey, Mom," he said, smiling. Then he saw my face, and the smile faltered. "You okay? You look upset." Chelsea moved fast. She stepped between us, touching his arm. "She's fine, baby. We were just talking about the house. You know how emotional older people get about change. Older people. Like I wasn't standing right there. Like I couldn't speak for myself. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What was I supposed to say? Your wife just slapped me? She called me a maid? Would he even believe me? This was the woman he'd chosen, the woman he'd promised to love forever just yesterday. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his eyes. As I tell you this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write your city below so I can feel a little closer to you. "Mom," he said quietly, "what's going on?" And that's when Chelsea made her biggest mistake. That's when she showed him exactly who she really was. Chelsea's smile tightened. I could see her mind working, calculating. She squeezed Marcus's arm and laughed, a brittle fake sound that echoed in my kitchen like breaking glass. "Nothing's going on, honey. Your mother is just being dramatic. We were discussing the living arrangements, and I think she's feeling a little overwhelmed. Aren't you, Mabel?" The way she said my name, like a dare, like she was challenging me to contradict her in front of my own son. I stood there, my hand still against my cheek, and I felt something crack inside me. Not break, not yet, but crack, like ice on a pond when the temperature starts to shift. I looked at Marcus, my baby boy, and I saw him looking between his wife and his mother, confused, caught in the middle. "Mom," he said again, stepping around Chelsea. "Talk to me. What living arrangements?" Before I could answer, Chelsea jumped in again. "We talked about this, Marcus, remember? We agreed that your mom shouldn't be living here alone anymore. She's 65. She needs help. Family takes care of family, right? The words sounded reasonable. That was the worst part. If you didn't know what had just happened, if you hadn't seen the coldness in her eyes or felt the sting of her hand, you might actually believe she was concerned about me. But I knew better now, and I needed my son to know better too. Marcus, I said, and my voice came out quieter than I meant it to. Can we talk? Just you and me? Chelsea's grip on his arm tightened. Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of me. I'm family now, remember? We don't keep secrets. Marcus gently removed her hand from his arm. Chelsea, baby, give us a minute, please. Something dark flashed across her face. Anger, maybe, or fear. But she covered it quickly with that plastic smile. Of course. I'll just go start unpacking some boxes from the car. We brought your things, Mabel. I figured we'd start moving in today. No point in waiting, right? She walked out of the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor my husband had installed 30 years ago. Each click felt like a nail being hammered into something I couldn't name yet. The moment she was gone, Marcus turned to me. Mom, what's really going on? And don't tell me nothing. I know you. I took a breath. My cheeks still burned. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the counter to steady myself. Baby, did you really agree to move in here without asking me first? Marcus looked confused. What? No. I mean, we talked about it, but it was just an idea. We haven't decided anything. Why? Don't you want us here? It's not about want, I said carefully. This is my home. I raised you here. Your father died here. Every corner of this house has a memory. And Chelsea, I stopped myself. How do you tell your son that his wife of one day just assaulted you? How do you break his heart like that? Chelsea, what? Marcus pressed. He stepped closer, and that's when he really looked at my face. His eyes widened. Mom, your cheek, it's red. What happened? I touched my face, and the sting brought tears to my eyes. Not from pain. I'd survived worse pain than a slap, but from the shame of it, the humiliation. I was 65 years old, and someone young enough to be my daughter had put her hands on me in my own kitchen. Marcus, did she hit you? The question hung in the air between us, direct, clear. My son's voice had gone very quiet, very still. The same voice he'd used as a teenager when he caught a boy picking on a smaller kid at school. That protective tone, that righteous anger. I wanted to protect him from this truth. I wanted to lie and say I'd bumped into something, burned myself on the stove, anything but admit what had really happened. But I'd raised him to value honesty. I'd raised him to stand up for what was right. Yes, I whispered. She did. Marcus's face changed, not gradually, all at once, like a door slamming shut. His jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists at his sides. He took a step back, and I saw him struggling with something, wrestling with the impossible reality I'd just handed him. She hit you, he repeated, like he was testing the words, trying to make them make sense. Chelsea hit you. Baby, I don't want to cause problems between you two. Problems? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mom, she put her hands on you. That's not a problem. That's... He stopped, ran his hand over his face. What else did she say? I hesitated. The rest was worse somehow. The words were worse than the slap, because words reveal what's really in a person's heart. She said I was old, that I couldn't take care of myself anymore, that you two were moving in and I was going to... I couldn't say it. I couldn't repeat those words. Going to what, Mom? Cook and clean for you. Be your... I took a shaky breath. She called me your maid. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Marcus just stood there, staring at me, and I watched something die in his eyes. Some innocence, maybe, some trust. He'd gotten married less than 24 hours ago, and already that marriage was stained with ugliness. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I was sorry he was hurting. Sorry his happiness was being destroyed. Sorry I had to be the one to tell him. Don't, he said firmly. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. He walked past me, heading toward the front door where we could hear Chelsea moving things around. I grabbed his arm. Marcus, wait. Think about this. She's your wife. You love her. Maybe we can talk, work this out. He turned to look at me, and the expression on his face took me back 20 years. It was the same look he'd had when he was 14 and found out his best friend had been stealing from our church collection plate. Betrayal, disappointment, and something harder underneath, determination. "Mom," he said gently, "do you remember what you taught me when I was little? When that kid pushed me down on the playground?" I did remember. Marcus had come home with scraped knees and tears in his eyes, and I'd held him while he cried. Then I'd looked him in the eye and said what my own mother had taught me. "Baby, you can forgive people, but you never, ever let anyone treat you or the people you love with disrespect. Because if you accept it once, they'll think they can do it again." "I remember," I whispered. "Then you know I can't let this go." "I won't." He pulled away gently and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there alone, my blue apron still on, my coffee gone cold on the counter. Through the window, I could see the morning sun climbing higher in the sky. It was going to be a beautiful day outside, but inside my house, inside my heart, a storm was coming. I heard voices in the living room. Chelsea's, rising in pitch. Marcus's, low and steady. Then Chelsea again, louder now, defensive. I walked slowly toward the doorway, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. Part of me didn't want to see what was about to happen. Part of me knew I had to witness it, whatever it was going to be. When I reached the living room, I saw them standing by the front door. Chelsea had a box in her arms. It looked like kitchen supplies, things for her kitchen. Marcus was blocking the doorway. "Move, Marcus," Chelsea was saying. "This is ridiculous. She's lying to you. Can't you see that? She's jealous. She doesn't want to share you. She wants to keep you all to herself like some mama's boy." "Stop talking," Marcus said quietly. "Excuse me?" I said, "Stop talking." His voice was so calm it was frightening. "You're making it worse." Chelsea set down the box with a thud. "Making what worse?" "Marcus, listen to me. Your mother is manipulating you. Old women do this. They make up stories. They play the victim." "Show me your hand," Marcus said. Chelsea blinked. "What?" "Your right hand." "Show it to me." She held out her hand, and even from where I stood, I could see it. The slight redness across her palm. The evidence she couldn't hide. Marcus stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked up at his wife's face, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight I'd never heard before. "I want you to think very carefully about what you say next," he said, "because whatever comes out of your mouth right now is going to determine everything that happens after." Chelsea's face had gone white, then red, then white again. I watched her cycling through emotions: shock, anger, fear, calculation. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then she made a choice. The wrong choice. "She deserved it," Chelsea said. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. She deserved it. I watched my son's face, and I saw something I'd never seen before. It was like watching a man realize he'd married a stranger. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He took a step back from Chelsea like she'd become something dangerous, something he didn't recognize. "Say that again," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Chelsea realized her mistake immediately. I saw it in the way her eyes widened, the way her hand flew to her mouth like she could stuff the words back in. But it was too late. You can't unring a bell. You can't unsay the truth. "Marcus, I didn't mean—" "Say it again," he repeated louder now. "Tell me why my mother deserved to be hit in her own kitchen." Chelsea's face crumpled. She reached for him, but he stepped away. "Baby, please, you have to understand. She was being difficult. We were just talking about the house, about our future, and she got this attitude." "An attitude?" Marcus's voice was rising now. "My mother had an attitude, so you hit her?" "I barely touched her. It wasn't even that hard." "It left a mark on her face, Chelsea." Chelsea's eyes darted to me, and for a second I saw pure hatred there. Like this was all my fault. Like I was the villain in her story. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said, turning back to Marcus. "She's always been cold to me, from day one. Nothing I do is ever good enough for precious Mabel Jefferson." I felt like I'd been slapped again. Cold? I'd welcomed this woman into my home. I'd made her favorite dishes. I'd given her my grandmother's pearls to wear at the wedding. Pearls I'd been saving for my own daughter if I'd ever had one. "That's not true," I said quietly. "Oh, isn't it?" Chelsea spun to face me, and the mask was completely gone now. This was the real her. The her that had been hiding under the sweet smiles and the yes ma'ams and the perfect daughter-in-law act. You think I don't see the way you look at me? Like I'm not good enough for your precious son? Like I'm taking him away from you? Chelsea, Marcus started, but she cut him off. No, let me finish. I've been holding this in for months. Do you know what it's like, Marcus? Trying to build a life with you while your mother watches my every move? She judges everything. The way I dress, the way I talk, my job, my family. I began, but the words died in my throat. Because somewhere in her twisted version of reality, she actually believed what she was saying. She'd built this narrative in her head where I was the problem, where she was the victim, where hitting me was somehow justified. Marcus held up his hand. Stop, both of you. He looked at Chelsea. When did my mother ever say anything bad about you? Chelsea faltered. She doesn't have to say it. I can feel it. The way she looks at me. The way she looks at you? Marcus laughed, but it was a hollow sound. Baby, my mother looks at everyone with kindness. That's who she is. That's who she's always been. Not to me, Chelsea insisted. And I heard something desperate in her voice now. She was losing him. She could feel it slipping away, and she was grasping at anything to hold on. She's never accepted me. She's never wanted me in this family. I thought about the bridal shower I'd thrown for her, how I'd invited all her friends and family, made food for 30 people, decorated my whole house in her wedding colors, blush pink and gold. I thought about the late nights I'd stayed up helping her address wedding invitations because she was stressed about work. I thought about the morning of the wedding, when I'd held her hand and told her she looked beautiful, and meant it. But none of that mattered to her. She'd already decided I was the enemy. Is that why you thought it was okay to call her a maid? Marcus asked. Because she didn't accept you? Chelsea's face hardened. I never said that. Mom, Marcus turned to me. What exactly did she say? Word for word. I didn't want to repeat it. Saying it out loud the first time had been hard enough. But my son deserved the truth. She said you two were moving in, that I was old and couldn't manage the house alone, and that I would help around the house, cooking and cleaning. Then she said, You're our maid now, Mabel. Marcus turned back to his wife. Is that true? Chelsea's jaw clenched. I might have said something like that, but I was joking. She took it the wrong way. A joke? Marcus's voice cracked. You slapped her as a joke? No, I slapped her because... Chelsea stopped abruptly, realizing she was about to dig herself deeper. She pressed her hands to her face, and when she lowered them, there were tears in her eyes. Real tears this time. Marcus, please, I love you. I made a mistake. I was stressed about the wedding, about moving, about money. Money? Marcus's voice went quiet again. Dangerously quiet. What about money? Chelsea wiped her eyes. The wedding cost so much, more than we planned. And your job is good. But it's not. I mean, we're not rich. And this house, Marcus, this house is sitting here, paid off, worth probably $300,000, and she's just living in it alone. Understanding dawned on Marcus's face like a terrible sunrise. This is about the house. No, it's not just about... You wanted my mother's house. I wanted us to be smart, to build wealth. This house should be ours, yours. You're her only child. One day it will be anyway. So why not push her out now? Marcus finished. Why not turn her into a servant in her own home so we can take it over? That's not what I meant, but that's what you did. Marcus ran his hand over his face, and I saw my son aging before my eyes. How long, Chelsea? How long have you been planning this? Chelsea went very still. As I tell you this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write your city below so I can feel a little closer to you. Because right now, in this moment, I felt so alone. Even with my son standing there, even in my own house, I felt like a stranger in my own life. Planning what? Chelsea said carefully. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm not stupid, Chelsea. I'm going to check our bank account. I'm going to check our credit cards. And I'm going to find out if you've been making plans behind my back. Her face went pale. Marcus, don't. But he was already looking at his phone, scrolling, tapping. The silence stretched out. I watched his expression change. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked like grief. You withdrew $5,000 last week, he said quietly. Our savings. You said it was for the wedding caterer. Chelsea said nothing. But we already paid the caterer. I wrote that check myself. He kept scrolling. And here, another $3,000 2 weeks before that. You said that was for your dress alterations. Marcus, were you planning to leave me? His voice broke on the last word. Was that what this was? Marry me, get access to my accounts, take the money, and then what? Divorce me and take half of everything, including my mother's house? No. Chelsea's tears were flowing freely now. Baby, no, it's not like that. The money, I have debt, student loans, credit cards. I was embarrassed to tell you. I didn't want you to think I was a failure. So, you stole from me instead. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Marcus demanded. The money you'd save by not having to pay rent? By living here, in my mother's house, while she cooked and cleaned for us like a servant? Chelsea's mouth opened and closed. She had no answer. Or maybe she did. But she knew anything she said would only make it worse. Marcus looked at me, and I saw my baby boy struggling not to cry. Mom, did you know any of this? I shook my head. No, son, I didn't. He nodded slowly, then turned back to Chelsea. Pack your things. What? Pack your things, he repeated, his voice steady now, cold and clear as winter ice. Get whatever you brought here and leave. Marcus, we just got married yesterday. You can't. I can, he said. And I am. Get out of my mother's house. Chelsea looked at me, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Mabel, please, talk to him. You're a Christian woman. Tell him about forgiveness. Tell him everyone makes mistakes. You hit me, I said simply, in my own kitchen. And when my son asked you about it, you said I deserved it. Then we found out you've been stealing from him and planning to take my home. I took a breath, steadying myself. I do believe in forgiveness, Chelsea, but I also believe in consequences. She stared at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized she'd lost. Her face twisted with rage. Fine, she spat. Fine. You can have him, you pathetic old woman. You can keep your precious mama's boy in this sad little house with your sad little life. I don't need either of you. She grabbed her purse from the couch and stormed toward the door. But before she left, she turned back one more time. You're going to regret this, Marcus, both of you. I could have made you something. I could have pushed you to be better. But now? She laughed bitterly. You're just going to end up like her, poor, alone, and forgotten. She slammed the door so hard the walls shook. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus and I stood there in my living room, and neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. We just listened to the sound of her car starting, the engine revving, the tires screeching as she peeled out of the driveway. And then my son, my strong, proud, accomplished son, sank down onto the couch and put his face in his hands. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. But he had nothing to be sorry for. He hadn't known. He'd been betrayed, too. I walked over and sat beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders like I used to when he was small. It's not your fault, baby, I said softly. You didn't know who she really was. But I should have, he said, his voice muffled against his palms. I should have seen the signs. I should have protected you. You did protect me, I told him. Just now. You protected me. He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What do I do now, Mom? And I didn't have an answer. Because sometimes life doesn't give you clear directions. Sometimes you just have to sit in the wreckage and figure out how to rebuild. But I knew one thing. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The way we always had. We sat there on that couch for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The grandfather clock in the corner, the one my husband had fixed 100 times because it always ran slow, ticked steadily, measuring out the silence between us. Marcus finally lifted his head. His eyes were dry now, but they looked older somehow, like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. I married her yesterday, he said, almost to himself. 24 hours ago, I stood in front of God and everybody and promised to love her for the rest of my life. I squeezed his shoulder. You didn't know, but I should have. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where Chelsea's car had been. There were signs, Mom. Small things. The way she'd get angry when I wanted to visit you. How she always had an excuse when you invited us for Sunday dinner. That time you offered to help us with the down payment on a house, and she got upset, said we didn't need charity. He turned to face me. She didn't want a house with us. She wanted your house. And I was too blind to see it. I thought about that, about blindness and sight, about what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. I'd had my own moments of doubt about Chelsea, little things that didn't sit right, but I'd pushed them down because I wanted my son to be happy. I wanted to believe the best in her. Love makes us blind sometimes, I said. That's not a weakness, baby. That's what makes us human. Marcus shook his head. She hit you, Mom. She put her hands on you. And I brought her into your life. I brought that violence into your home. The word hung there. Violence. Such a big word for one slap. But it wasn't really about the slap, was it? It was about the intention behind it. The cruelty. The calculated plan to strip me of my dignity, my home, my independence. Can I tell you something? I said quietly. Something I've never told you before? He came back to the couch and sat down beside me. Of course. I took a breath, gathering the courage for a confession I'd kept locked away for 30 years. Your father, God rest his soul, he wasn't perfect. I loved him with everything I had, but he had his demons. The year before he died, things got hard. His business failed. We lost almost everything. And he started drinking. Marcus stared at me. I never knew that. You were young. I kept it from you. I looked down at my hands, at the wedding ring I still wore after all these years. One night we had a fight about money. I told him he needed to stop drinking and find work, and I paused, feeling the old wound open up. He pushed me. Just once. I fell and hit my head on the kitchen table. Mom, I told myself it was an accident, that he was drunk, stressed, not himself. I forgave him, and he never did it again. But Marcus, I've spent 30 years wondering if I was right to stay, wondering if forgiveness meant accepting something I shouldn't have accepted. Marcus took my hand. Is that why you're so calm about all this? About Chelsea? I shook my head. I'm not calm. I'm heartbroken. But I learned something from your father that I want you to understand. People show you who they are in moments of stress. Your father pushed me once, and then he spent the rest of his short life proving it was a mistake. He got help. He stopped drinking. He became the man I'd married again. I looked at my son. But Chelsea? When you confronted her, she didn't apologize. She didn't show remorse. She blamed me. She blamed you. And then she stole from you and called you a mama's boy on her way out the door. I squeezed his hand. That's who she is, baby. Not who she pretended to be. Who she really is. Marcus nodded slowly, taking it in. What do I do now? You heal, I said simply. You file for an annulment or divorce or whatever needs to happen. You protect yourself, change your bank passwords, talk to a lawyer, and then you move forward. What if she comes back? I thought about that. She will. People like Chelsea don't give up that easily. She'll cry, apologize, promise she's changed. She'll try to make you feel guilty for abandoning her. How do you know? Because I've lived 65 years on this earth, and I've seen her type before. They never think they're wrong. They think they're entitled. I stood up, smoothing down my blue apron. But you're not going to fall for it, because you're your father's son. The good parts of him. You know right from wrong. Marcus stood too and pulled me into a hug. A real hug. The kind where you hold on tight because letting go means facing reality again. I love you, Mom, he whispered. I love you too, baby. Always have. Always will. When he pulled back, I saw something new in his eyes. Determination. I'm going to fix this. The money she took, the damage she did, I'm going to make it right. I know you will. But what I didn't say, what I couldn't say yet, was that the hardest part was still coming. Because Chelsea wasn't finished with us. Not by a long shot. I still wonder if I did the right thing. What about you? What would you have done in my place? Chelsea came back 3 days later. I was in the kitchen. Where else? Making chicken soup. Marcus had barely eaten since she left. He'd taken a few days off work, spent most of his time in his old bedroom upstairs, the one I'd kept exactly as he left it when he went to college. Sometimes healing means going backward before you can move forward. I heard the knock on the door. Soft, hesitant. Nothing like the confident woman who'd walked into my kitchen and changed everything. When I opened it, I barely recognized her. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Red eyes. She looked small, standing on my porch, holding a white envelope in her shaking hands. "Mrs. Jefferson," she said quietly. "Not Mabel this time. Can we talk?" Every instinct told me to close the door, to protect my home, my son, myself, but I'd been raised to hear people out, to give second chances, so I stepped aside and let her in. We stood in the entryway. I didn't invite her further. She didn't deserve my kitchen table, my living room, the spaces where family gathered. "Marcus isn't here," I said. "I know. I saw his car was gone. I came to talk to you." She held out the envelope. "This is a check, $5,000. Everything I took from the account. I'm paying it back." "I didn't take it. Where'd you get that money?" "I sold my engagement ring." Her voice cracked. "It was worth more than I told Marcus. I pawned it yesterday. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something shift in my chest. Regret, maybe, or the beginning of it. Mrs. Jefferson, I know you have no reason to forgive me. What I did was—" She stopped, composed herself. "There's no excuse. I was raised better than that. My grandmother would be ashamed of me." "Then why did you do it?" I asked. "Why did you hit me? Why did you plan to take my home?" Chelsea's face crumpled. "Because I was scared. Because I grew up poor. And I swore I'd never be poor again. Because when I saw this house, I didn't see your home. I saw security, wealth, a way out." She wiped her eyes. "And because I was jealous of you. Jealous of how much Marcus loves you. Of how you raised him to be a good man. Of how you did it alone and never complained." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "My mother didn't fight for me like that. She chose men over me every time. And when I saw what you and Marcus had, I didn't want to be part of it. I wanted to destroy it. The honesty stunned me. It was raw and ugly and real." "So you're here to apologize?" I asked. "I'm here to tell you the truth, and to give you this." She placed the envelope on the small table by the door. "Tell Marcus I'm sorry. Tell him I'm filing for annulment. He'll be free in 60 days. She turned to leave, then stopped. "I know you'll never forgive me, but I want you to know. I see now what I had and what I threw away. That's a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life." She walked out, and I watched her go. No drama this time. No slammed doors. Just a broken woman who'd finally seen herself clearly. I picked up the envelope. Inside was the check, just as she'd said. And underneath it, a handwritten note on stationery embossed with our wedding date. 3 days ago, a lifetime ago. "Mrs. Jefferson, you raised a man who knows his worth. I wish someone had raised me the same way. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I'll carry that shame forever. Chelsea." Marcus came home an hour later. I gave him the check and the note. He read it twice, then set it down on the kitchen table and sat in silence. "Do you think she meant it?" he finally asked. "I think she did," I said. "But meaning it and changing are two different things." He nodded. "I don't want her back, Mom. Even if she's sorry, even if she's changed, I can't unsee what I saw. I can't unfeel what I felt. I know, baby. Is that wrong? Should I give her another chance?" I sat down across from him. "Only you can answer that. But I'll tell you what I know. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still walk away. You can wish them well and still protect yourself." Marcus picked up the check. "She sold her ring." "She did. That doesn't fix what she did." "No," I agreed. "But maybe it fixes something in her." We sat there together as the afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, painting everything gold. My son had lost a wife but found himself. And me? I'd lost the illusion that family was simple, that love was always enough, that doing the right thing always felt good. But I'd kept my dignity. I'd kept my home. And I'd kept my son. Sometimes that's all the victory we get. 2 years passed. Time has a way of softening sharp edges, of turning wounds into scars, of teaching us that survival is its own kind of victory. Marcus got his annulment. He threw himself into work, got promoted twice, and slowly, so slowly, I watched him smile again. Real smiles. Not the forced ones he wore in those first few months after Chelsea left. He dated a few women. Nice women. One was a teacher named Angela who made him laugh. Another was a nurse named Patricia who brought me flowers every time she visited. But he was careful now, guarded. He'd learned that pretty words and sweet gestures don't always mean a pure heart. I went back to my routines. Sunday dinners, Wednesday night Bible study, my garden, where I grew tomatoes and okra and collard greens. I wore my blue apron with the white flowers, and every time I tied it around my waist, I remembered that morning. Not with anger anymore, but with something else. Gratitude, maybe. Because that slap had revealed a truth we needed to see. I didn't think about Chelsea much. When I did, I prayed for her. Prayed she'd find peace, find help, find herself. But I didn't reach out. Some bridges, once burned, are better left as ash. Then one Sunday after church, I ran into Deborah Mitchell at the grocery store. Deborah was a gossip, always had been, but she had a good heart under all that talk. She grabbed my arm in the produce section, her eyes wide. "Mabel, honey, have you heard?" "Heard what?" "About Chelsea, Marcus's ex-wife." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" Deborah leaned in close, lowering her voice like we were sharing state secrets. "She got married again. Some businessman from Atlanta. Big fancy wedding just 6 months after your Marcus. My cousin was there. She does catering, you know. Said it was all over Instagram." I felt something twist in my chest. 6 months. She'd barely waited 6 months. "Good for her," I said, even though I didn't quite mean it. "Oh, honey, that's not the news." Deborah's eyes gleamed. He left her, 3 months after the wedding, caught her trying to forge his signature on some bank documents. She was trying to transfer money into her own account. The man had her arrested, Mabel. Arrested. The tomato I was holding slipped from my hand and rolled across the floor. "What?" "Fraud. Theft. The whole thing. She made bail, but the trial's coming up. My cousin says she's been posting on social media about how everyone's against her, how she's the victim." Deborah shook her head. "Some people never learn." I drove home in a daze. When I got there, Marcus was on my porch. He had a key now, came by most Sundays for dinner, and one look at my face told him something was wrong. "Mom?" "What happened?" I told him. All of it. He listened quietly, his face unreadable, and when I finished, he just nodded slowly. "I'm not surprised," he said. "You're not?" "No." He helped me carry the groceries inside. "She reached out to me last year. Did I tell you that?" My heart sank. "No, baby. You didn't." It was right after I got my second promotion. Somehow she found out. She sent me this long email about how she'd been in therapy, how she'd changed, how she'd never stopped loving me. He set the bags on the counter. She asked if we could meet for coffee, talk about giving things another try. "What did you say?" I didn't respond. He looked at me. Because I knew in my bones that she hadn't changed. She'd just gotten better at hiding who she really was. And when I heard she got married so fast to someone else, I knew I was right. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for a mark. We stood there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this had all started, and I felt a strange kind of peace settle over me. "The thing about people like Chelsea," Marcus said quietly, "is that they're their own worst enemy. They can't help themselves. They see an opportunity, and they take it. Consequences be damned. And eventually, the world catches up. That's the karma," I said softly. "That's the karma," he agreed. He started unpacking groceries, and I watched him move around my kitchen with easy familiarity. My son. My good, strong, wise son who'd learned one of life's hardest lessons and come out the other side intact. "You know what's funny?" he said, pulling out the collard greens. "When she slapped you that morning, I thought my world was ending. I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And now? Now I think she did me a favor." He turned to look at me. "She showed me exactly who she was before we had kids, before we bought a house together, before we built a life I'd have to tear apart later. Can you imagine if I'd found out 5 years down the line? 10? I couldn't." The thought made me shudder. "God has a way of protecting us," I said, "even when it doesn't feel like protection at the time." Marcus came over and kissed my forehead. "You protected me, Mom. When you told me the truth, when you showed me what she really was, you saved me. I just told you what happened, baby." "No." His voice was firm. "You could have lied. You could have minimized it, made excuses for her, tried to save my marriage. A lot of mothers would have done that, protected their son's happiness over their own dignity. But you didn't. You told me the truth, even though it hurt, even though it broke my heart. I felt tears prick my eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, but you loved me enough to let me hurt, to let me feel that pain and learn from it. That's real love, Mom. That's the kind of love that protects. We made dinner together that night. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, mac and cheese, all his favorites. And as we ate, as we talked and laughed and shared stories, I thought about Chelsea. Wherever she was, whatever she was facing, I hoped she'd finally learn. I hoped she'd stop running cons and start running toward herself, toward truth, toward healing. But I also knew that wasn't my responsibility. I'd done my part. I'd survived her. I'd protected my son. I'd maintained my dignity. The rest was between her and God, between her and the life she'd built with her own hands. Mom, Marcus said, breaking into my thoughts. Angela, the teacher I've been seeing, she wants to meet you, properly this time. Would that be okay? I smiled. More than okay, baby. Bring her by next Sunday. She's nervous. She knows what happened with Chelsea. She's worried you won't trust her. Then she's already wiser than Chelsea ever was, I said, because she understands that trust is earned, not demanded. That respect is given, not taken. Marcus grinned. I think you're going to like her. She reminds me of you, actually. Strong, kind, doesn't take any nonsense. Sounds like my kind of woman. We cleaned up together, and as I washed the dishes and he dried, I glanced at my blue apron hanging on its hook by the stove. It had been through so much, years of meals, years of memories, one terrible morning that changed everything. But it was still here, still whole, still serving its purpose, just like me. Life keeps its own score. I didn't have to punish Chelsea. I didn't have to seek revenge or wish her harm. The universe had a way of balancing the scales all on its own. She'd tried to take from others, and now life was taking from her. She'd tried to build happiness on lies, and those lies had crumbled beneath her. Meanwhile, Marcus and I were still here, still standing, still choosing truth over comfort, dignity over ease. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Angela came to dinner the following Sunday. She brought fresh flowers, daisies, not roses, and she wore a simple yellow dress that reminded me of sunshine. When I opened the door and saw her standing next to Marcus, I knew immediately. This one was different. Mrs. Jefferson, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for inviting me into your home. Not just her hand, her respect, her humility. The understanding that my home was sacred space, earned through years of love and sacrifice. Call me Mabel, sweetheart, I said, pulling her into a hug instead. And welcome. We had dinner at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught Marcus to read, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where we'd weathered storms. Angela helped me set the table without being asked. She complimented the food without going overboard. And when Marcus told a story about his childhood, she listened with genuine interest, not the performative kind. After dinner, while Marcus was outside taking a phone call for work, Angela helped me with the dishes. We worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before she spoke. Marcus told me what happened, she said quietly, with his ex-wife. I kept washing, waiting. I want you to know. I see you, Mrs. Jefferson. I see what you did, how you protected him, how you told him the truth even when it cost you. She set down the dish towel and looked at me. My mother never did that for me. She let me marry a man who hurt me because she didn't want to interfere. It took me 3 years to find the courage to leave. I turned off the water and faced her. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't be. It taught me something important. Her eyes were clear, honest. It taught me that real love tells the truth. And that's what I want to give Marcus. The truth. No games. No manipulation. Just truth. I dried my hands on my blue apron. The same one I'd worn that terrible morning. The same one I'd worn through 1,000 better days. Then you and I are going to get along just fine. She smiled, and I saw tears in her eyes. I hope so, because I love him, and I love what you built in him. That integrity, that kindness, that's rare, Mrs. Jefferson. Call me Mabel, I reminded her. And yes, it is rare, because it's hard. It's hard to be good when the world rewards being ruthless. It's hard to tell the truth when lies are easier. It's hard to build character when shortcuts are everywhere. But you did it. I tried, I said, and I'm still trying, every day. Marcus came back in, and the three of us sat in my living room drinking sweet tea and talking until the sun went down. Angela told us about her students, about a little boy who'd finally learned to read after struggling all year. Marcus told us about his new project at work, and I just listened, watching them together, seeing the easy way they moved around each other. No tension, no calculation, just two people learning to love each other honestly. After they left, I sat alone in my quiet house. The grandfather clock ticked its steady rhythm. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, I could hear the crickets starting their evening song. I thought about everything that had happened, about Chelsea and that slap and the darkness she'd brought into my home, about Marcus's pain and growth and healing, about karma and justice and the way life has of balancing itself out if we're patient enough to wait. And I thought about all the women out there, young women, old women, women in the middle of their stories who might be facing something similar. A daughter-in-law who disrespects them, a son who's being manipulated, a moment where they have to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth. So I want to tell you something. Woman to woman, heart to heart. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize. Don't convince yourself that love can fix cruelty or patience can cure malice. When someone slaps you, literally or figuratively, that's not a mistake. That's a message. And your job isn't to decode it or fix it or explain it away. Your job is to protect yourself and the people you love. I could have stayed silent that morning. I could have let Chelsea think she'd won. I could have become the maid she wanted me to be, sacrificing my dignity for my son's temporary happiness. And where would that have led? Years of abuse, years of watching her drain him financially and emotionally, years of living as a prisoner in my own home. But I spoke up. I told the truth. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it broke my son's heart for a while. But hearts that break open can also heal stronger, like bones that fracture and fuse back, tougher than before. Marcus is happy now, really happy. And he's happy with a woman who sees him clearly, who loves him honestly, who respects the woman who raised him. That wouldn't have happened if I'd protected his illusion instead of exposing his reality. I've lived 65 years on this earth, and I've learned that dignity isn't something someone can give you or take away. It's something you carry inside yourself. It's the choice you make every single day to honor your own worth, to speak your truth, to refuse to be diminished. Chelsea tried to make me small. She tried to reduce me to a servant, to erase everything I'd built and everything I'd sacrificed. But she failed, because my value doesn't come from what I do for others. It comes from who I am. A woman who raised a good man, a woman who survived loss and poverty and heartbreak, a woman who can still tie on her blue apron and make Sunday dinner with joy in her heart. That apron has been with me through everything. And you know what? It's not just an apron anymore. It's a symbol, a reminder that service done with love is beautiful, but service demanded through force is slavery. There's a difference, and knowing that difference, that's wisdom. If you're hearing my story today and you see yourself in it, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not being dramatic. If someone treats you with disrespect in your own home, if someone tries to diminish you or control you or hurt you, that's real. That's wrong. And you have every right to speak up. And if speaking up costs you a relationship, then that relationship wasn't worth keeping. Because any connection built on your silence, on your submission, on your pain, that's not love. That's not family. That's imprisonment with a pretty name. Life is too short to spend it making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. Life is too precious to waste on people who only value you for what you can give them. Life is too beautiful to live it in fear. I'm 65 years old and I'm still here, still standing, still cooking Sunday dinners, still wearing my blue apron, still choosing truth over comfort, dignity over peace, self-respect over empty harmony. And I'm happier now than I was 2 years ago, when I thought I had to accept whatever came my way just to keep my son's marriage intact. Because I learned something that morning, standing in my kitchen with my cheek burning. The only person's approval I need is my own. The only person I have to face in the mirror every morning is me. And I can look at that woman, that 65-year-old black woman with silver in her hair and strength in her spine, and I can say, "You did good, Mabel. You told the truth. You protected your boy. You kept your dignity. You survived. That's enough. That's everything." So if my story helps one woman open her eyes, it was worth it. If it helps one mother find the courage to speak up, it was worth it. If it helps one person understand that karma is real, that justice comes, that truth wins, even when it takes time, then every hard moment was worth it. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on the bell to hear more stories of women who turned pain into wisdom. Every day, one woman, one life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes, one story can change an entire day. God bless you, and see you next time.